An NBA era just ended, and most fans don't even know about it. That era that shaped the last 17 years of highlights, debates, rivalries, and championships, and the NBA just ended it all with a simple rule that few people recognize.
The NBA got their rules right. They created something called the second apron. I'm not going to bore you with the details. Simply put, its goal was to create parity, and it worked.
Lately, we've been seeing the dark side of the NBA business. We've seen what the Mavs did to Luka. We've seen the Celtics sell their stars out of the blue. The latest one is Chris Paul getting sent home by the Clippers after announcing his retirement. In the future, we'll be seeing more of these, and wait till you hear why some NBA experts think OKC are the next in line to suffer from the death of the old era. But to understand all this, let's start with what made the old era what it was. To understand what just ended, you have to remember what this era actually was. From 2007 onward, the league didn't belong to teams or markets or systems. It belonged to the players who were given more power or those who took the power through sheer skill. LeBron James turned the NBA into a star-controlled league where mobility, decision-making, and roster construction became as dramatic as the games themselves. Stephen Curry redefined the geometry of the sport, forcing defenses to guard 30 feet from the basket and inspiring a generation to shoot before they even learned to dribble. Kevin Durant became the prototype of the modern scorer, a 7-footer with guard skills who could join a 73-win team and make them even more unstoppable. Those three didn't just win, they dictated the direction of the league. They influenced rule changes, shaped how front offices operated, and created the era of super teams that produce constant finals rematches and global storylines. Now, the old era is ending, and Chris Paul is one of the first key figures from that era to retire after Dwayne and Carmelo retired. The shift is happening, and the business side of things is influencing everything. However, this all led to some serious problems. While the fans felt it in a less competitive league, foul baiting and the likes, the NBA's management felt it in lower ratings. But the sign that this era was ending began appearing long before anyone realized the shift had already started. The decline didn't hit all at once. It arrived slowly, and the first signs came with the injuries, load management, and superstars logging fewer games each season. Teams built around them started recalibrating, not because they stopped believing in the stars, but because age and availability forced them to prepare for a future they had avoided acknowledging. The league no longer waited for these guys to define the postseason. Younger teams began stealing those moments and rewriting expectations. Soon, front offices were forced to react. Golden State realized they could no longer spend unlimited money to build around Steph under the new rules. Phoenix watched the Durant-Beal-Booker experiment suffocate under its own cost. Teams like the Clippers, the Nets, the Suns soon realized that the era of 3 max superstars at the top of a roster was no longer sustainable. Listen to Charles Barkley simplify the situation.
I hate when I hear, man, the second apron's not fair. What do you mean it's not fair? If y'all stop all wanting to play together, we wouldn't have to make up bogus-ass rules to stop y'all from playing together.
Teams were forced to choose between loyalty to a fading era and the reality of a new one. Boston, more than anyone, exposed the truth. They won a championship with a stacked roster, the exact type of team that dominated the 2010s. But 3 months later, the entire core was broken apart because the new system made it impossible to keep them together. But that isn't the full picture. You see, while the old guard was slowing down, a new wave was rising with new talent and a global reach the likes the league had never seen before. The NBA had upgraded to an entire generation built for speed, versatility, and evolution. You see it in Victor Wembanyama first. 7'4" with guard skills, timing that feels supernatural, and numbers that shouldn't be possible for someone his size. Now teams are scrambling to figure out how to defend a player who breaks every rule the league has ever followed. Then there's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, redefining the mid-range game while mastering the art of drawing fouls. However, someone like Luka Doncic entered this era differently, not as a prospect or an experiment, but as an immediate force who plays like no other. Anthony Edwards completes the shift, not from a stylistic standpoint, but from an energy standpoint. He represents the confidence, swagger, and explosiveness that make the NBA feel young again. All of these guys, along with players like Brunson, Halliburton, Mobley, and Jalen Williams, represent a league that no longer depends on aging icons. So, what's it about these guys, and why does the shift feel so final? The short answer to that is that the style of basketball played by these guys is nothing like the era they're replacing. The LeBron and Curry generation built its dynasty on space, shooting, and star gravity. The new generation is building its identity on its positionlessness, unpredictability, and just players who can do everything on the floor without needing a traditional role. Victor Wembanyama steps onto the court as a giant, moves like a guard, blocks shots at the arc, and scores like Kevin Durant. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander manipulates the refs while sharpening the mid-range game. Luka Doncic takes the concept further. He does not overpower teams with athleticism, he dismantles them with angles and intelligence. Anthony Edwards adds the final spark. His attacking style, his confidence, and his presence have made him the emotional leader of this new era. This era is not defined by one archetype. It is defined by versatility, international talent, and players who refuse to be put into a box. The game is more fluid now. The roles are looser. The ceilings are higher. But this isn't all it takes to end an era. So let's get into the main issue, the second apron.
No, they
The
don't
second
have dumb
apron
rules.
thing
Hey,
is-
hey, cut the bullshit. They ain't got no dumb rules. Let me tell you something. I'm so glad you asked that question.
Is this a second apron defense?
No, yes. Why did they have to come up with bullshit rules, Bill? Because all these guys want to play together and not compete, okay?
I think they came up with it because the Players Association, I don't think realized that putting these rules in is going to make all these teams blow up, and you're basically going to be able to afford 2 or 3 guys max, and then you're going to have to cut corners everywhere else.
The end of an era is never just about the players getting older. It's also about the league deciding what kind of basketball it wants to reward. So, the NBA introduced the second apron rule, which changed the logic of roster construction entirely. Basically, teams can no longer spend their way out of mistakes. They cannot stack 3 or 4 max contracts and fill a bench with veterans chasing rings. Once a roster climbs over the second apron, every tool that used to save a front office disappears. No more mid-level signings, no more packaging players in trades, no more last-minute buyouts. Even first-round picks can be punished if a team stays over too long. The league did not just discourage super teams, it put concrete around their ankles. You see the effects everywhere. Boston won a championship and still had to tear the roster down 3 months later. Phoenix separated its stars to avoid the tax cliff. Dallas restructured its entire cap sheet to remain flexible around Luka, and they later sold him for reasons no one fully understands. Even teams with multiple all-stars like Cleveland or New York are one miscalculation away from an immediate reset. Experts like Bill Simmons think OKC is next.
The Celtics, they had no chance of keeping Drew Holiday and Porzingis. Like OKC now. They've made all these really smart moves to put the roster they have together, and they're not going to be able to keep it together even though they were smart. I don't like penalizing people for smart.
The super team is not just fading, it has no place in the new financial ecosystem of the NBA. With the rules reshaped and the cost rewritten, This new era is not being led by front office aggression. It's being led by balance, patience, and depth. But then again, this shift is also forcing fans to confront something deeper. For an entire generation of basketball fans, the NBA was defined by giants. LeBron James was a mythic figure, a player who could reverse a dynasty with one signature game. Steph Curry rewrote the geometry of the sport and dragged every defense into a new, uncomfortable world. Kevin Durant turned scoring into an art form and shaped the league's power structure by choosing where and when to dominate. These players were not just stars, they were cultural landmarks. This is why the transition feels emotional. Fans are watching icons age in real time. They're watching injuries pile up, minutes decrease, and playoff runs get shorter. For many, it's the first time the NBA feels unfamiliar. But to others, it's a league where anything can happen anytime.
Suddenly it feels like a league where, as KG once said, anything really is possible. And to me, that is the best kind of league you can be.
But there is excitement and entertainment woven into all this. The new NBA era will feature Wembanyama blocking a shot at the arc before dunking on the next possession without breaking stride. There'll still be Ant-Man turning a routine drive into a poster that echoes through social media for days. And Luka manipulating the court with a cold calm. It is necessary to understand that the NBA is not losing its soul, it's finding a new one. So yes, the era built by LeBron, Curry, and Durant has finally reached its end. Their influence will never disappear. Their highlights, their titles, and their rivalries will always define one of the richest stretches in NBA history. But the league they once controlled now belongs to a different generation. The rules have changed. The game has evolved. The center of the basketball world has shifted to younger hands. The NBA is stepping into a new chapter, and what comes next is not a downgrade, it is a rebirth. But if you want to see what this new era means for the sneaker world, then watch this video next. Why NBA superstars are secretly leaving Nike.